How do you keep your project on track using SharePoint? I'm Tony Zink, and this is the Project Guide. Hi folks, Tony Zink here, project management author and trainer and creator of the Project Manifesto. I show people how to use tools and techniques to get better results faster on their projects, whether that means saving time, saving money, reducing risks, or providing a more stress-free and pleasant experience for everyone involved in your project. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing or following me on your favorite social media channel. And if you're not tuning in directly on my website, tonyzink.com, then you can go there to find this video and others like it. You can see the links to my social media channels, whether your favorite is Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter or so forth. So you can subscribe there or follow me there for updates on upcoming webinars, newly published training videos, and you can find other good stuff there too. So when you're managing a project or working on a project, there's a lot of things that you have to deal with, and there's a lot of juggling that takes place. You typically have a number of people working on your project. You typically have a number of things going on, people working on different activities and so forth. And your job as the project manager is to coordinate everything and make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible. But with all these things going on, it's really easy to lose track of what's going on sometimes. It's easy to lose track of documents that people are working on and passing around. It's easy to lose track of issues that have occurred and changes that your customer has asked for and so forth. I'm a believer in putting tools and systems in place in order to help me keep organized and make sure that I don't forget things as much as possible. In my professional life or in my personal life, I have to rely on systems and tools to keep me on track at all times. So today I'm going to show you one of those many tools that are available out there, one that's offered by Microsoft called Microsoft SharePoint, or just SharePoint for short. Now, if you were to ask people, 5 different people, what is SharePoint, you're probably going to get 5 different answers or even more. You're going to have people say, SharePoint is an online collaboration tool, or SharePoint is our company intranet, or it's a business information system, or what have you. I mean, I could go on and on here, but all these answers are correct. Essentially, the way I like to look at it is SharePoint is like a giant box of Legos that don't come with any instructions. So it's up to you to learn how to use it and to figure out some interesting ways that you can use it to make your life easier. Now today I'm going to show you one application of SharePoint where you can use it to help yourself keep organized on your projects. So as we go through here, if you have any questions or comments, you can enter them into the live chat, and I'll try to address those a little bit further down the line here. And if you're not watching this live today, you can still enter your thoughts into the comments section. So I'll check back periodically in the comments section and see if any of you have asked any questions or made any comments, and I'll address them as they come in. So let me switch over to my computer screen here and I'll get started. So what you should see here is SharePoint, or to be more specific, this is a website that I've created using SharePoint to help me get organized around managing my project. So I'm a project manager and I'm working on this project where my company is installing some electric vehicle charging equipment at the Beachcomber Resort. And so this project, the Beachcomber EV Charging Equipment Installation Project, I've created what I call a project site to keep my team and myself organized. You can call this a project hub, you can call this a project portal, but this is where we can keep everybody focused and keep everything in one central repository for the project in order to kind of keep ourselves organized. What we're looking at here is the home page, or the main landing page of this project site. And so you can see here that I've configured this to show a few different things right here on the home page, so that when people visit this site, they have some important information right here at their fingertips. So right across the top of the page here, I've got a project summary, that basically shows an overall timeline for the project. If I go down here a little bit further below that, I see that I have the hottest issues and risks for this project. I have the newest change requests for this project. And below that even, I have the latest document updates for this particular project. Now, I've configured this project site to show these particular pieces of information. Now, SharePoint as a tool is very, very configurable. Now, it's not exactly intuitive to set up and configure, but once you learn the basic building blocks of SharePoint, then you can set it up basically however you want. You can show whatever information you want in your project site. Now, let me just explain what I've put into my project site and why. Obviously, I have tasks and a timeline in my project site. It's sort of like project management 101 to plan out the tasks that need to be performed and assign people to those tasks so you can track the work, plan and track the work. But I've also chosen to put documents in my project site and issues and risks and change requests. Now, documents is often a big pain point for some project teams, because it's the de facto method of collaborating on a project, or even not on a project within a company, is by attaching documents to emails and then sending them out to people, or sending them out to groups of people. And so if you're looking for a document and this document starts getting passed around between people on your project team via email, it can be difficult to determine which version of the document is the latest version. Maybe you created the document, you sent it out, and somebody else maybe made updates to it, and then they sent it back out to the team. Maybe they copied you on it, maybe they didn't. So you end up going through this exercise of basically asking people, did you make updates to this document, or who has the latest version? You end up digging through your email inbox and maybe finding multiple versions of a document and trying to figure out which one is the latest. It just becomes a nightmare. So if we can put all of our project-related documents in one place, then it's easier to see where is the latest version of this document, because it's in our central repository. And so anybody who should be making updates to a document should go to that central repository and make their updates there. So I like to keep documents centrally stored in a project site. I also like to track issues and risks in a project site. So issues happen all the time on projects, and of course they're problems in and of themselves. But if you lose track of them, if you allow them to linger and drag out for a long time without getting resolved, they can cause other problems, sometimes even bigger problems on your projects. They can cause delays, they can cause cost overruns, and so forth, just because you've lost track of all the issues. Or you've lost track of some of the issues. So I like to create an issues and risks tracker also, so that all the issues and risks are tracked in one place. You can assign somebody's name to those issues for follow-up. You can see the status of an issue. If you want to know what the status of an issue is, you can just look and see who's assigned to that issue, and you can contact them and ask them if they haven't updated it in your project site. So issues and risks are a great thing to store in your project site in a central location. And I like to lump issues and risks together in a central tracker or central list, because risks are just basically issues that haven't happened yet. But then at some point, if a risk does turn into an issue, then you've already got it in the right place, versus some people like to track risks and issues separately from one another. And when a risk turns into an issue, now you have extra steps that you have to take in order to close out the risk and then go and open up an issue over in the issues tracker or the issues log. So I like to keep them together. And then the third thing that I'll point out here that I really like to keep track of in a project site is change requests. Customers ask for changes all the time on projects. And so it's really important for you to keep track of those changes or those requests for change, because first of all, if you don't give them all their changes, they're not going to be happy with the end product. So you want to make sure that you've tracked them and that you're going to be delivering them. But also, if you're not tracking them, then it's more difficult for you to assess the impact of those changes on your project. So some changes are pretty minor and they don't really have an effect on your timeline or your costs or which people you need to have involved in your project. But some bigger changes do have an effect on those things. And so if you're not tracking them and managing them properly, then your project can go off the rails. And even if you do deliver those changes to your customer, chances are you're not going to deliver in the time frame that you originally agreed to. Chances are you're not going to deliver for the same cost that you originally agreed to. And so if you surprise your customer at the end with a delayed delivery date or a higher price tag, then they're not going to be happy with you. You may have delivered exactly what they want, but it was late and it cost more than they wanted. And that might have been fine had you actually told them about it ahead of time rather than waiting till the end. So that's another reason why I like to track customer change requests in a central location like a project site. So I've rambled enough about that. Let me go back and resume my regularly scheduled program already in progress. So here we are back in the project site. And so let me point out here, I'm going to start with documents because documents are fairly straightforward and easy to understand. These boxes on my homepage here are just showing sort of like a view into the issues and risks and the change requests and the documents. But those are actually all stored in their own separate repositories. So I can go over here to the navigation menu on the left, go to the Documents library, and this is where all of my documents are stored that I've been working on for my project. And if I have a new document that I want to share with people and I want to add this to the repository, I can just simply upload it. I can find it on my desktop, and it'll upload it, and there it is. Now there's my new project charter document. Now if I want to view this, I can just simply click on it, and it'll either open up in my web browser like I'm showing here, or it'll depending on what web browser you're using and what your security settings are and what your SharePoint settings are and so forth, it might just download it to your desktop, and then you can open it up with a program like Microsoft Word or Excel or whatever the associated program is that goes with this type of file. So I can view this. I can also edit this right from here. So I can edit this right in the browser if I have the appropriate browser that's capable of doing this, or I can edit it in Microsoft Word. And so what it'll do here is it will download this to my desktop. You can see that there's now a notification there saying that it's been downloaded, and there it is. So I can start working on this document and put in, for example, the name of the project, which is Beachcomber EV Charging Equipment Installation. And I just hit save here, and it saves those changes right back out to the SharePoint site, the SharePoint project site. And then when I'm done, I just close this. And I go back to the document repository, and I can see here now that I have version 2 that it's tracked. And if I click on it to just open it up and view it again, it'll show my changes that I made to that document. So anybody on the project team could do this. One great thing about document repositories in SharePoint, like this one here, is that you can turn on version tracking, and it'll tell you what version of this document is currently out there in the repository. You can go back and look at previous versions, you can revert back to a previous version, and so forth. If I go back to the project site homepage, that panel on the homepage that showed me a view into the documents for this project, if I scroll down here, it'll show me, there it is, at the top of the list of the latest document updates. It tells me that it was updated about a minute ago and who updated it, how big the file size is, the version, and so forth. So A real easy way to get some quick wins using SharePoint is to create a document repository for all your team members to use to store all their documents in one place and update them all in one place. So now let's talk about issues and risks. I've got this panel right here on my home page. It shows me the hottest ones. If I go into the issues and risks list, it'll show me all of the issues and risks that have currently been logged and are being tracked for this project. And it looks like I have 2 issues so far in this project. The charging equipment hardware is backordered, and the customer is having difficulty preparing the installation site. I can click on any one of these and it'll open it up, and it'll give me more details about that particular issue or risk. It shows me the title, the description, who's the owner, probability, impact, exposure, and so forth. These are attributes that you can specify for tracking issues and risks for your project. These are the kinds of things that are important for me to track on my project. You might have different things that you want to track for the issues and risks on your project. I can also make changes to this issue right here by clicking Edit Item. So I don't agree that this is a low priority, so I'm going to change this to a high priority and save that. And it's as easy as that to update issues and risks. If I have a new issue or a new risk that we're encountering, then I can just simply add this by filling out a form. In this case here, maybe we're encountering a new risk where tropical storms may cause installation delays. So the weather forecasters are telling us that there are tropical storms coming, and so that may have an effect on our equipment installation that we have scheduled. I can assign an owner to this. I can assign this to somebody for actual follow-up. I have attributes here where I can specify the probability of this happening. I'm not going to give it a high probability because I don't really trust weather forecasters, so I'll leave that to medium. For the impact, that'll be probably a medium impact, if not even a high impact. I could always come back in here later and change this if it turns out that it's going to be a really powerful tropical storm and it's going to have a big impact on our project. It's an active status. For category, that'll probably be a timeline type of a risk, and then priority is medium for right now. I can assign a due date to this. I can put in some information about mitigation or contingency planning, and then when the issue or risk is resolved, I can put a statement about that down here and put a date when the issue or risk was closed. So it'll add that to the list. And I'll go back to my home page, and it'll show up in there as a hot issue or risk. Moving on here, change requests. Let me just spend a couple of moments on this. So change requests, like I've mentioned already, are really important to track because your customers are going to come to you and they're going to ask you for changes. It's inevitable. So this is a great place for you to track those. The newest ones are displayed here on the home page, but if you have more than just the 3 or 5 that might be displayed here, then you can go straight to the change requests list and manage them or view them from here. Now, again, same basic type of behaviors here. This list is set up a little bit differently. It just has a slightly different interface. So this is just demonstrating that you not only have control over the information that's stored in a SharePoint project site, but you even have control over how that information is displayed and what that experience feels like. So in the issues and risks list, when I clicked on an individual item, it opened it up in like a pop-up box. In the change requests list, when I clicked on a change request, it just takes you to another web page that shows you the details of that information. I can always edit it just like I could over in the other list, but this is just showing a different kind of experience that you have control over in in SharePoint. So again, maybe we've got a new change request that we want to track. The customer has come to us and they've said that they want to install the charging stations in a different location other than what we originally designed for. So I'll just click the new item there. It'll open up a form here that I can fill in, and let me just paste in here the information rather than sitting here and you watching me type the whole time. So the title of this is, move charging stations closer to the guest buildings. I'll assign myself as the owner to this. I'll assign myself to this to follow up with this on the customer, rather. This is an active status. This has a relatively high, I'm going to call this a medium priority because we haven't scheduled the actual installation yet, but we've started planning, so it is kind of a medium priority that we have the customer make a decision on this. And I can even assign a due date to this. Maybe I want them to make a decision by the end of next week. I'll put a description in here, and I can even specify what kind of an impact is this going to have on the project. And so, again, a really important thing to think about when you're managing change requests for a project is not only, what does the customer want, what are they asking for, but also what kind of an effect is that going to have on the project. You want to think about, is this going to have an effect on the timeline of the project? Is this going to have an effect on the costs of the project, or which people you're going to need to have involved in the project, and so forth. So by adding that to the form here, it's reminding you that you should think about this. In this case, I'm thinking that we need to evaluate the new equipment installation location and recalculate installation timing and costs. I've got a place here where I can specify or supply the outcome of this change, and I can specify the date that it was closed. It's still open, so we don't have an outcome yet. We don't have a closed date yet, so I'll just go ahead and save it, and then I'll add it to the list. And like I showed you before, if I go back to the home page of my project site, we can see that on the home page as well. As far as the newest change requests, it's right there at the top. Move charging stations closer to the guest buildings. I'm going to leave you with a few things here. First of all, you might be wondering, how do I get SharePoint if I don't have it already? So there's a couple different options here if you don't already have access to SharePoint. Now, what I say it that way because if you work for a medium or larger sized company, you may already have SharePoint available to you, and maybe you just aren't aware of it. A lot of companies use SharePoint for doing things like this. You can use it for collaborating on projects. You can use it for tracking customer and sales information. You can use it for tracking engineering and maintenance information. You can use it for a lot of different things. So a lot of companies use it, and your company may already have it. So at that point, it would be a matter of just asking around and finding out, who do I talk to get my own project site created. Now, if your company doesn't use SharePoint yet, then you've got a couple of different options to get it. Option number one is to set it up and manage it and maintain it in-house. What that means is SharePoint is an application, it's a business application that runs on servers. And so that would basically involve getting servers set up and purchasing the software and installing it and configuring that software on those servers in order for you to have SharePoint available and ready to use. If you don't have those kinds of resources, or you just don't want to bother with all that geekiness, then another option is you can purchase it as a hosted service from a third party. For example, Microsoft, they make the software and they sell it, and they also have a hosting option for you through their Office 365 service. So you can look at, if you're not already an Office 365 subscriber of theirs, you can look through their different Office 365 subscription plans, pick one that includes SharePoint, and then they'll just send you the credentials and the login information, and you can log in and start setting it up and start using it. Now, it's a little bit easier said than done because you have to know a thing or two about SharePoint in order to be able to set it up and use it. You just don't have to know nearly as much of the technical mumbo jumbo in order to get it up and running. But you still, if you've never used SharePoint before, if you've never set up SharePoint collaboration websites or what have you, you're still going to have a learning curve to overcome. But those are basically your two options to get SharePoint. So once you've got SharePoint, then you need to do a couple different things. One is think about your data structure and naming conventions for things. And what I mean by data structure is start by thinking about what are the different kinds of information I'm going to want to store and track and manage for my project. So in this example here that I showed you, I'm storing and organizing and sharing project-related documents. I'm storing and organizing and sharing and collaborating on risks and issues. I've got change requests. I've also got tasks. That's where that timeline came from. That was at the top of my project site homepage. So think about the different types of information that you're going to want to keep track of using your new SharePoint site. Once you've done that, then you're going to need to do a little bit of learning on how do you actually set that stuff up in SharePoint in your new site. And so to get started, you're going to need to understand a few different building blocks of SharePoint. You're going to need to understand how lists, libraries, pages, and web parts work. A list is basically a structured repository for information that you can think of it as something that you can store like in a spreadsheet in rows and columns. That's typically the type of thing that you can store in a list in SharePoint. If it's unstructured data, so it's not necessarily something that you can organize into rows and columns, then it's probably some sort of a document or a file. So if you have those types of things that you're going to want to share and collaborate on, then that's done with libraries. Lists are for structured data. Libraries are for unstructured data like files. And then the pages and web parts. Those two building blocks are what you're going to need to understand how to use to build the experience, the interface that people are going to go through when they visit your new project site. So pages are just simply web pages that people would visit, like that home page was a page that I set up, and then I put those different things on that page, the timeline, the hot issues and risks, the latest change requests, the latest document updates. Those were added to that page using what are called web parts. So if you understand how these four building blocks work and how to set them up and use them in SharePoint, lists, libraries, pages, and web parts, you're going to be well on your way to being able to set up your new project site and get it ready for your team to use. Finally, what I'll leave you with here is don't assume, once you've got it set up, don't assume that people are just going to come and they're going to know how to use it. Train them. Even if it's only a 30-minute short training session, take some time to train your project team members on how to use your new project site or project hub or project portal, whatever you choose to call it. Show them how to find the information in your documents repository, in your issues and risks list, in your change request list, in your tasks list that you've set up, and so forth. Show them how to find that information, show them how to add and update information, and do everything you can to promote that they use it regularly, rather than resorting back to handling everything by attaching things to emails. Thanks for tuning in and joining me today. I hope that you found this information useful and it was worth your time. Before I leave you, let me just give you a quick reminder that if you're not tuning in directly on my website, tonyzink.com, then you can go there to find the video for this episode and others like it. You can find links to my social media profiles, so if you'd like to follow me and get updates on upcoming webinars and new training videos I've published and so forth, then you can get those updates by following me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn and so forth. So thanks again for spending this time with me today, and until next time, go back out there and keep building great things.